Welcome to the Infernal Brotherhood of the Scruffy-looking Nerf herders. Today I'm reading Star Wars Handbook Volume 2, Crimson Empire. I'd like to take a moment and invite you to support this channel through memberships and apparel, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring that damn bell. Nom Anor. Nom Anor is a mysterious alien who masterminded the assassinations of the Imperial Ruling Council members, planting evidence to make it appear that Kir Kanos was continuing his vendetta against the Empire. He assassinated the council head, Bur Nolids, so that Zandel Caravus would be elected as the new head. As Arnor predicted, the other members nominated Caravus because they thought he would be the next likely target, and they could control power and investigate the assassinations from behind the scenes. But when Caravus declared himself emperor and dismissed Arnor's assistance, the alien left him to his own demise. His presence has been felt within various secretive circles and is known only to a handful with whom he has had dealings, including Grappa the Hutt. Nom Anor's machinations were just part of a greater, sinister plan yet to be revealed. Wedge Antilles and Rogue Squadron. A long career as commander of the legendary Rogue Squadron made Wedge Antilles a revered hero within the New Republic. The success of Rogue Squadron has given it almost mythical presence in any battle, in some cases bringing about the surrender of an enemy without conflict. After the Second Battle of Coruscant, during which the Empire used many new and advanced military weapons, the New Republic began a reassessment of its own forces. Despite Wedge's objections, his superiors ordered him to create a new rogue squadron based around fighters of several different designs, which in theory would allow for greater flexibility in battle. Wedge's argument was the purpose of Rogue Squadron would be compromised was refuted within the reasoning that a new squadron's chances of success would be enhanced under the name of the famous Rogue Squadron. Wedge's distaste for bureaucratic decision affecting his command led him to direct the new Rogue Squadron from afar, as commander of the captured Super Star Destroyer Luskankia. He was able to persuade his superiors that this would allow for the broadest range of fighters to be available, with over 100 different ships for Rogue Squadron alone. The new squadron saw its first action in the Battle of Theta, during which a squadron comprised of B-Wings, A-Wings, and other fighters decimated the Imperial forces above Theta, while transports and dropships sent hundreds of assault teams to liberate the planet below. Black Sun. Yul Sib, current leader of the Black Sun criminal organization, Yul Sib arranged a bargain with Grappa the Hutt to gain control over the Imperial Ruling Council, while Grappa's pirates sabotaged New Republic's trade routes. After assassinating council members, General Imodet, Asib sent Black Sun assassins to secretly murder council head Zandel Caravus and replace him with a clone, but the plan failed. When one of the top men disappeared, Asib learned of Grappa's part in the man's death and sent an assassin to reciprocate the deed. Yul Asib's location is a carefully held secret. His wishes are usually carried out by his underlings, but he only makes rare personal contact by transmission, ensuring his safety and his power over the galaxy's underworld. Marcus Canip. One of the top members of the Black Sun criminal organization, Marcus Canip was one of the first to notice Kir Kanos' fugitive status within the Empire. He sent a number of his bounty hunters after Kanos, hoping to gain the huge bounty placed on the former guardsman's head. Canif provided Grappa the Hutt with Sparti cylinders, Imperial cloning technology that cost him much to acquire, and his men also captured the Imperial Council member Fina Dasta for the Hutt. Grappa promised Canif shipments of rare valuable grease spice, but only made one payment. Canif was killed by Grappa when he tried to calm the enraged Hutt after they realized that Grappa's employee, the bounty hunter Kenix Kill, was in reality Imperial fugitive Kir Kanos and had escaped right under their noses. However, Grappa continued to use his frozen body when transmitting to Canip's leader, Yul Sib, to avoid punishment for his murder. The plan did not work for long. Lieutenant Blim. Imperial officer Lieutenant Gef Blim was Karnor Jax's personal assistant and, secretly, his chief assassin. It was perhaps Jax's knowledge of Mara Jade, the Emperor's hand, that prompted him to create his own hand to do his bidding. Blim's timid, awkward bearing was a deception to appear incompetent or weak to others. He never spoke in public. Many of Jax's men believed Blim was a mute, but in fact his silence allowed him to be ever observant of the actions and behaviors of those who worked with Jax. His low officer's rank also let him go unnoticed by other Imperial officers. Blim was Jax's most valued and trusted underling. While Lord Jax worked behind the scenes to secure funds from power-hungry Imperial councilmen, Blim assassinated anyone who was a threat to Jax or his plans to kill the Emperor and make a bid for power. Later, when Jax sensed the inevitable destruction of one of his flagships, Blim was the only soldier he allowed to escape with him. Just before the final battle between Kir Kanos and Karnor Jax, Blim secured a position to eliminate Kanos from a distance. Blim was killed by Sish Sadit mere seconds before he could shoot Kanos. Baron Rajes Dasta. Baron Rajes Dasta is a powerful shipping magnate who supplies the Empire with most of its cargo ships and is the controller of a strategically important planetary sector of the Empire. Dasta sent his daughter Fina to speak for him on the Imperial Ruling Council due to his failing health. When he learned that Fina had been imprisoned by Council head Xandel Caravis, he threatened to withdraw his support from the Empire. But then, he went further and sent his fleet of starfighters, the largest privately owned fleet in the galaxy, to Caravis' door. In the end, Caravis was dead, and the Council was captured by the New Republic. Dasta then withdrew his sector from the Empire to govern itself. Dengar. The famed bounty hunter Dengar was one of the deadliest beings in the galaxy. Coming briefly out of retirement, he took employment with Grappa the Hutt, looking for easy money when the Hutt was paying handsomely for anyone who could bring back those who did not uphold their bargain with him. When Grappa killed one of Black Sun's top men, Marcus Caniff, his control over the organization and his plans fell apart, and Dengar fled the Hutt's palace. But he was captured by Black Sun and, knowing they had the upper hand, revealed Grappa's part in destroying their plans. Dengar was released for providing this information and vowed to never again work for a Hutt. Emperor's Royal Guard. Of the many facets of Palpatine's new empire, one of the most mysterious and fearsome was the Imperial Royal Guard. Shrouded in their crimson robes, masked by their faceless helmets, the guardsmen were known only to each other and to the Emperor himself. A member of the Guard was an imposing sight. No other members of the Empire could be so clearly defined a warrior. The weapon of choice for the Imperial Guard was a special force pike, deceptively small and thin, but deadly in the grip of a guardsman. Additionally, the Royal Guard's unknown nature allowed them their mere presence to be a weapon. They answered to the Emperor alone, and nobody outside or within the Empire knew their secrets. The guards were used by the Emperor mainly for personal tasks, often as fighters or bodyguards. The Emperor was rarely seen without guardsmen close at hand. The loyalty of the Guard was unquestioned, their warriors' skill masterful. Occasionally, guardsmen would be found stationed with other high-ranking officials within the Empire, such as a Grand Moff or one of the 12 Grand Admirals, but only at the request of the Emperor himself. While it is commonly believed that the Guard was comprised of the most elite of the Emperor's stormtrooper soldiers, their exact origins have yet to be discovered. Even the number of guardsmen was a mystery. Perhaps there were 50, perhaps 500. The Emperor kept his private records with himself and at Imperial Center, and only he could access them. Training for the Guard took 1 year of grueling, painful work. The trainees battled each other in countless matches, perfecting the fighting art called Ichani. By working alone and in pairs, the students learned how to both rely on themselves and on a teammate to achieve victory. Failure in the training often meant death. Of more than 40 students in a given training year, only a handful survived for their final test before the Emperor himself. And that test proved their ultimate loyalty to the Emperor, a battle against one's training partner to the death. The guards were typically scattered throughout the Empire doing the work of their Emperor. Some were assigned special missions by the Emperor, others were rotated into stormtrooper units to keep them fighting trim. After more than 30 years of spreading its new order throughout the galaxy, a dark time came for the Empire. Imperial forces suffered a devastating defeat at the Battle of Endor, in which the Emperor lost not only most of its fleet and half-completed superweapon, the second Death Star, but the Emperor as well. Some guardsmen returned to the Imperial capital to serve the Emperor's replacement, Imperial Vizier State Pestage. Some remained with their stormtrooper units, desiring only to fight for the Empire. Others, like Kir Kanos, felt that they served the Empire's best by maintaining true to his ideals, and they followed their own paths. 6 years after the Battle of Endor, Emperor Palpatine returned in a cloned body to lead his empire again. The Royal Guard felt a new era of glory was upon the Empire, but soon, with the Emperor's clones destroyed and Palpatine's ultimate destruction, they found themselves without direction. In a rare moment of unification, all remaining guardsmen returned to their training center in Yinkor to mourn the final loss of their emperor. A guardsman who was with Palpatine at the time of his death also arrived, revealing that the Emperor was betrayed by one of their own, Karnor Jax. As the guards swore retribution, Imperial stormtroopers attacked, ordered by Jax to eliminate all of the Royal Guardsmen as traitors to the Empire. The guard were massacred. For every enemy they cut down, 10 more emerged to blast them. Only one guardsman survived, Kir Kanos. Now armed only with his wits and his force pike, Kanos plots to take down all who had betrayed the cause of the Emperor Palpatine. Grappa the Hutt. A self-satisfied, ruthless crime lord, Grappa the Hutt was well on his way to becoming a major player in the galactic underworld. He established ties to Black Sun, the largest criminal organization in the galaxy, and made them a bargain. In exchange for valued black market goods, Black Sun would provide Grappa with Imperial cloning technology and captured Imperial Ruling Council members so that they could be replaced with clones under their control. Grappa also allied with this strange alien Xanabar, who worked for him in exchange for beings that they could sacrifice in their rituals. To disrupt New Republic trade routes, the Hutt employed Salmon and other pirates to capture beings who did not honor their commitments to him. He hired bounty hunters such as Kinnick's Kill, the disguised Kir Kanos. Grappa felt he was poised to take control of the galaxy. He had the aid of the Black Sun, inside knowledge of Imperial Ruling Council, and control of the flow of raw materials to the New Republic and the Empire. But everything quickly went downhill for Grappa when his activities became noticed by both Kanos and the New Republic, which sent Mirith Sin to investigate his organization. Kanos infiltrated his palace, gaining inside information on Grappa's dealings with the Black Sun and his penetration of the Imperial Council. Though Sin and Kanos were captured by Grappa and the Xanabar, they escaped, and Grappa was unable to provide the Xanabar with the Imperial reward for Kanos. The Xanabar instead took Grappa himself as a sacrifice, eager to use such a large creature for their rituals. Grappa's allies. Xanabar. The Xanabar, natives to the planet Zo, were allied with Grappa the Hutt, providing services in exchange for sacrifices. These services included acting as bodyguards, soldiers, and smugglers. The Xanabar took their sacrificed victims for use in various ceremonial rituals. When Grappa was unable to hold up his end of their arrangement, the Xanabar took him as well. Nobody ever lived to tell what happens in these rituals, though it is rumored that they feast on their victims' bodies to give them life forces for their sacrifices to the gods. 4NG. 4NG, for slashing, was Grappa the Hutt's personal droid, handling the scheduling of appointments, translation, and other duties. He was frequently damaged by Trant, one of Salmon's pirates, who hates droids with a passion. It is unknown what happened to 4-slashing after his master Grappa was taken by the Xanabar. The Imperial Interim Ruling Council. The Imperial Interim Ruling Council was an assembly of political, military, and business leaders within the Empire. Its members were those who conspired with Karnor Jax to overthrow their emperor and increase their own power. They funded Jax's plot to kill the Emperor Palpatine, though some planned to expose his traitorous actions to gain favor. Jax quickly eliminated his enemies within the council, but before his own ambitions could be realized, he had to eliminate all trace of his part in the death of the Emperor. He was killed by one of the surviving members of the Empire Royal Guard, Kir Kanos. After the death of Karnor Jax, the council was thrown into chaos, with each of its members looking after its own interests and trying to gain control over the others. They also feared retribution by the missing Kanos. After a series of murders of various members, control of the council was taken by Zandel Caravis, who disbanded to rule as a new emperor. After Caravis' death at Kanos' hands, the remaining council members were captured by rebel forces. Admiral Banjir. A commander of one of the Empire's largest fleets, he represented Imperial Navy interests within the council. An Imperial traditionalist, he disliked sitting along aliens on a council. He was the second council member to be killed by an unknown assassin. Zandel Caravis, a longtime bureaucrat who'd seen by others as lacking both vision and spine, Caravis worked within the mysterious Naman Nor, who manipulated events to make him head of the ruling council. He took over the council by force with his private guard, arresting anyone who sided against him, but his new position made him a target for both Grappa the Hutt and Kir Kanos. Spearmaster Ch-Unk. Leader of the largest clan of Whippids on his home planet of Tula, Cha'unk controls a large number of whippids employed by various Imperials as bodyguards and uses them to persuade their employers to obey the Council. Unable to speak Basic, he is always seen with his protocol droid. He was the fourth interim Council member to be killed when he resisted Zandel Caravis' takeover of the Council. This led to whippids everywhere leaving the Imperial service, further weakening the fracturing Empire. Fina D'Asta, the ambitious daughter of vessel manufacturer Baron D'Asta, representing his interests due to his failing health, though she had not earned respect of her peers, she was kidnapped by Grappa the Hutt and replaced with a clone who could represent his own interests, including making peace with the Rebel Alliance. The real D'Asta was held in Grappa's palace and kept drugged to obtain information for 4 years until she was rescued by New Republic forces. General Imodet, the highest-ranking general in the Imperial military. His troops control several Imperial sectors and are the first line of defense against the New Republic. He suspected that the non-human council members plotted the mysterious assassinations within the council, but before he could find evidence, he became the third council member to be murdered. Admiral Giradai, a brilliant but reckless tactician, Giradai enjoys the thrill of putting others in danger to achieve his victory, though he secretly fears being placed in danger himself. He was quick to agree to begin a massive manhunt against Kir Kanos to protect the council, especially himself. Norim Kim, a former pirate who conquered several bands of plunderers to become warlord of an entire sector. As a human like Mike, he was more easily accepted than the other non-humans on the council. He is a master of backroom politics and conceived the idea to nominate Zandel Caravis as a puppet head of the council, little knowing that his plan would backfire. Kuluda Fear, the given leadership of the Shipbuilders and Astromechs Guild, which designs many of the Empire's ships and navigating systems, he was given a place on the council to ensure the Guild's continued cooperation with the Empire. Lord Manos, the leader of the galaxy's largest labor union, representing aliens who feel they have been given inferior status by the Empire. As a greed-motivated Deveronian, he uses his position to further his own ends, but as a non-human, he also wishes to give aliens the same status as humans within the Empire. Burr Nolids, an arrogant aristocrat, Nolids pushed his way into power after using his wealth to supply the Empire with an important resource. He took over as acting head of this council after Carnor Jax and General Wessel were killed, but his control was short-lived. He was the first council member to be assassinated under mysterious circumstances. Tan Starpire. On the council by token requirement rather than by choice, Starpire represents the Diet of Imperial Planetary Governors, a governmental body which puts positive spin on imperial edicts. He placed the council is hoped to create the illusion of representative democracy within the Empire and to prevent related uprisings. Maud Windcaller, a manipulative schemer who had been part of the Empire almost since its beginning, Windcaller operates an extensive news agency that is secretly an intelligence network used to establish contacts throughout the galaxy. She controls a cadre of female bodyguards skilled in the Royal Guards martial art of Ichani. Prince Za, a Defil who controls a number of strategic routes. Though his people are still treated as inferiors within the Empire's boundaries, Za enjoys the status of being part of the group Carnor Jax entrusted with ruling the Empire. His normally wraith-like appearance was dissolved when ultraviolet light was set upon the D-Pertine, much to the relief of the other council members. Imperial Council's subordinates. Zandel Caravis' private guard. After the murder of the 3 Imperial ruling council members, council head Zandel Caravis brought his own private guards into the council headquarters on D-Pertine. Under his ally Nominor's orders, Caravis announced that the council would now be under his own guards' protection. He then used them to take over the council by force. But Caravis signed his own death warrant when he declared himself the new emperor, and he and his guards were killed in battle by Kir Kanos. Lieutenant Ganner. Imperial Officer Ganner was head of security for the Imperial Ruling Council at D-Pertine. He incorrectly concluded that the evidence secretly planted in the bodies of the first 2 council members to be assassinated proved that Kir Kanos was continuing his vendetta against the current empire. With the council headquarters now in ruins, His whereabouts are unknown, though he may have been captured by the New Republic. Karnor Jax. Nobody thought an empire controlled by politicians could be ruled by a soldier. Karnor Jax changed their minds. Always hungry for power and willing to go to any lengths to obtain it, Jax filled the void left by Emperor Palpatine's ultimate death, a death he brought about. Karnor Jax became an Imperial Guardsman at the same time as Kir Kanos, but though they wore the same uniform, they were guided by very different goals. While Karnor lived to serve his Emperor, Jax worked only for his own gain. During the years after the Battle of Endor, Jax paved the way for his eventual rise to power, much as Palpatine did before him, by gaining political and military allies within the Empire. He also gained some limited dark side force abilities during that time, including levitating and precognition, from the senior dark side adepts who trained the Emperor's sovereign protectors. It's not yet known if he was one of himself. Palpatine's return from death created an immediate threat to Karnor Jax's political machinations. Jax had already gained favor with the Imperial Ruling Council, receiving 2 flagships, the Steadfast and Emperor's Revenge, and his own troops. He knew a direct confrontation with the Emperor was impossible. Palpatine would foresee and destroy any threat to his own person, but he was able to bribe the Emperor's personal physician to sabotage Palpatine's clone bodies. With the seat of power suddenly empty, Karnor Jax skillfully made it his own. But events out of his control quickly became new dangers to Jax. Despite his efforts to cover up his role in the Emperor's death, the Imperial Guard learned the truth. A large contingent of stormtroopers had been sent by Jax to ambush the entire guard and then quickly eliminate all of them, but one, Kir Kanos. Knowing that Kanos would stop at nothing to avenge the Emperor's death, Jax spent much of the next several months tracking him down. He found a lead to stray Imperial report filed on the planet Theta. By the time he arrived on the planet, his suspicion was confirmed, but his quarry had already escaped to Yinkor, the remote world that had once served as their training ground. Destiny returned them to the world on which their past had begun. Jax knew he had the upper hand. He had a Star Destroyer and his personal stormtrooper guard to find and eradicate Kanos, but his advantage was quickly lost. His ship was destroyed, and then his troops were killed off one by one. Kir Kanos and Karnor Jax faced off in the Squall, the fighting arena on Yinkor, and waged a fierce battle. Despite his skill in battle, Jax was defeated, slain by the only man who matched his skill. Karnor Jax's personal guard. The ambitious and egotistical Karnor Jax decided to form his own personal guard, placing himself above the Imperial Guardsman he once served with. He created a guard that, while effective and a symbol of power, did not have the skill or loyalty of the Emperor's own Royal Guard. Jax's guardsmen were selected by him from the Empire's stormtroopers and given distinct black armor to set them apart. These soldiers were killed by Kir Kanos prior to his final battle with Karnor Jax. Kir Kanos. Loyal, brave, relentless, the last of the royal guards, once sworn to protect the Emperor, now seek out vengeance on those who betrayed his master and his ideals. Nothing is known of Kir Kanos' life before he began his training to become an Imperial Guardsman, but whatever life it was serving him well during the rigors of Guardsman training on the barren world of Yinkor. Eventually, Kanos was one of the 4 selected to perform one final test before the sworn Emperor and his right-hand servant, the monstrous Darth Vader. Kanos was ordered to fight his partner, Lemet Tok. He obeyed unquestioningly and, to his dismay, killed the longtime friend. But Vader sensed regretful thoughts within the angst Kanos and aghast Kanos and challenged him to a duel. Before Kanos could strike once, Vader cut him down, slashing a searing gash across his face, leaving a permanent scar. It was with this cold reminder of his obligatory loyalty to that Kir Kanos was inducted into the Emperor's Royal Guard. Kanos served the Emperor for several years as a Royal Guardsman could, selfless, merciless, silent. But events beyond his control would change his life forever. The Emperor was killed by rebels in the infamous battle at Endor, and with no Emperor to serve, Kanos carried on alone, trying to live up to the Emperor's ideals. With Emperor Palpatine's return years later, Kanos returned to active duty as a guardsman, but his duty was short-lived, for the Emperor was betrayed by Karnor Jax, a fellow guardsman, and his cloned bodies were corrupted. Forced to deny himself a warrior's death, Kir Kanos escaped Jax's slaughter of the guard in order to exact vengeance on those who had betrayed the Emperor and his empire. Kanos went into hiding, staying one step ahead of Jax. He ended up on Theta, a backwater Imperial-held world of little importance. After getting into a fight with Imperial soldiers, the stormtroopers at a local tap cafe, Kanos escaped pursuit with Tem Murkon, a mysterious old man. Murkon left Kanos in his underground hideout to summon friends to protect them, Mira Sin and Sish Sadit on the New Republic. While Sin seemed to trust Kanos, Sadit was immediately distrustful of the dangerous and unpredictable warrior. After welcoming Kanos into their stronghold, the Hidden Republic base was attacked by Imperial forces. The battle looked dangerously bleak for the rebel soldiers until Kanos himself, dressed in full Guardsman battle armor, joined in their defense. The tide of the battle was turned, and the intended ambush ended in Imperial retreat. Kanos saved the lives of many troops, including Mira Sin herself, but he refused to accept any thanks. They were attempting to capture me. I did only what was necessary to prevent that. After advising Sin to retreat, Kanos returned to Yin Kor to prepare for a final confrontation with Karnor Jax. He knew the only one of them would survive the meeting, and it was fitting that they should finish their conflict where their fates and lives were sealed years before. Stripping Jax of his flagship and most of their subordinates, Kanos waited for the inevitable. After Kanos dispatched Jax's stormtroopers, they faced each other in the Squall, the arena from which only one fighter could walk away. As their battle raged and they pitted every fighting skill they had against one another, Sin and Sadit tracked Jax to Yin Kor. As Kanos was about to plummet into the shadowy pit of the Squall, the rebel confronted Jax, distracting him enough to allow Kanos to climb to the surface and resume his deadly duel. Sin wanted Jax alive for interrogation, but Kanos had no such demand placed on him. He plunged his vibroblade into Jax's chest, condemning the fallen man to death for the Emperor's assassination. Sadit tried to stop him. Mad with battle lust, the warrior instincts controlling his actions, Kanos spun his blade around just as Sadit ran into it. Kanos had fulfilled his part of the quest, but another who tried to complete his own mission was sacrificed in the process. Expressing neither regret nor remorse for the outcome of the battle, Kanos left Yin Kor. Jax was dead, but there were others. The next stage of Kir Kanos' plan was revenge against the current Imperial Ruling Council, whose members had conspired with Karnor Jax to dethrone the Emperor. He disguised himself as a bounty hunter and took the name Kinnick's Kill, then gained employment with the crime lord Grappa the Hutt and to gain information of the ruling council, which the Hutt had infiltrated with a clone. But when Grappa gave Mira Sin to the alien Xanabar as a sacrifice, Kanos abandoned his plan and followed her to the Xanabar homeworld of Zo to rescue her. After he escaped with Sin, they had to hide in the jungles of Zo. There, Sin revealed to him the truth behind the Emperor's rule, that he had mercilessly crushed anyone who did not submit to his wishes, no matter how cruel. Kanos began to understand that the Empire he served may not have been the one he believed in. The Xanabar then captured Kanos and brought him before Grappa the Hutt so they could receive the Emperor's reward for the fugitive, but Mira Sin was able to return with Alliance forces to rescue him in turn. He next confronted the clone Fina Dasta, an Imperial Council member under the control of the crime organization Black Sun. He was persuaded to not exact revenge on her because she was not a willing participant in the conspiracy against the Emperor. Kanos then joined Dasta's father and Sin's forces in a standoff against the council head Xandel Caravis. He quickly dispatched Caravis with his guards, but decided against killing the other council members who were captured in nearby cells. Although he has growing attraction to Mira Sin, Kir Kanos refuses to leave his vendetta unfinished. Her loyalty was to the New Republic, and Kanos' allegiance still belongs to the Emperor, for now. Master Kinnaid and Tav Kinnaid. Master Ved Kinnaid was the head of the Imperial Guard training facility on Yin Kor. A former guardsman himself, he was considered by the Emperor to be one of the best, most loyal warriors, and was bestowed the honor of becoming master instructor of his royal guard to create the guardsmen of the future. When Karnor Jax sent stormtroopers to ambush the guard at Yin Kor, Master Kinnaid was one of the last to fall. Tav Kinnaid was the son of Master Kinnaid. Though not an Imperial Guardsman himself, he allied with Kir Kanos to gain vengeance on those who had killed his father. He and Kanos, in disguise as bounty hunters, worked for Grappa the Hutt to gain inside information on the Empire. He also kept tabs on Mira Sin so he and Kanos could discover her secret mission at Grappa's palace. Later, when Kanos and Sin were fleeing from the Xanabar in Zo, Tav rescued Sin and returned her to an Alliance base. From there, Tav temporarily joined the rebel forces, and they staged raids on the Black Sun base on Smark, Grappa's palace on Genin, and the Imperial Ruling Council headquarters at D. Pertine. After the conflict ended, Tav enlisted in the service of Baron Rajez Dasta, who had just withdrawn his sector from the Empire. Lusankya. The Lusankya was a superstar destroyer with a long, strange past. It was constructed in secret for the Emperor and hidden beneath the surface of the Imperial Center for his use in an emergency evacuation vehicle. After the Battle of Endor, Imperial Intelligence Director Isan Isard used the ship as her private prison, which created sleeper agents for the Empire. She made the Lusankya the core of her fleet during her extended campaign to bankrupt the New Republic. During what came to be known as the Bacta War, Rogue Squadron was able to destroy Isard and capture the ship. It was then commanded by Wedge Antilles in the Battle of Feta and used as a base for the new Rogue Squadron. Massimo. Caught up in a conflict he wanted no part of, Massimo was perhaps the least dedicated member of Mira Sen's rebel contingent. He threw in with the Rebel Alliance to get away from his troubled past, which he kept hidden. Until he could find a new world to start over on, Massimo figured he would be safe on with the New Republic. Unfortunately for him, he was assigned to the rebel force on Feta, which was planning a long-term overthrow of the imperial government there. Making the most of his situation, he earned the trust of the leadership, Mira Sen, and usually supervised work with the secret rebel base. Massimo's sense of security was lost when Kir Kanos was brought to the rebel encampment. He was immediately suspicious of Kanos, knowing nothing of the stranger. He did a quick background check and discovered Kanos was a fugitive wanted from the Imperial warlord Karnor Jax. His fear that Kanos would be tracked to the rebel base was quickly confirmed when the Imperial forces attacked. Though the enemy was driven back, Massimo knew his time with the rebels might be cut short. Massimo led the evacuation of the base, and the rebels moved to their backup location at Kolofala Pass, while Sin went to Yinkor after Jax and Kanos. New Republic Commander Wedge Antilles made contact with Massimo and began coordinating rescue efforts and the liberation of Feta from the Empire. At the urging of Sin's troops, Massimo made a request to Antilles that he be sent after her, gambling that the outcome of the battle on Yinkor would be decided before their arrival. It was. Jax and his troops were dead. Kanos had fled, and Sin was bearing her lieutenant, Sish Sadit. Massimo now felt ready to pursue his own interests. When he discovered Mira Sen's new mission to spy on the crime lord Grappa the Hutt, he left Feta and the Alliance forces and decided to offer the information to Grappa for a price. But Grappa reneged on their bargain and gave both Massimo and Sin to the alien Xanabar as sacrifices. Massimo was last seen on the Xanabar homeworld of Zo, an unwilling participant in a strange alien ceremony. Tem Merkin. Tem Merkin, though, thought he had it made. He was rich, he was well-connected, and he was virtually unknown on Feta. A devious schemer, he led his life by one rule: look out for number one. He had been around long enough to see the likes of Jedi Knights and Royal Guardsmen. He knew plenty of them, and plenty about others. Appearing to be a harmless old man, nobody at the spaceports on Feta thought much of him. But he kept his ears open, and it paid off for him in a big way. Not only was he able to make some significant pocket change by providing information to the local Imperial authorities, but he managed to talk his way into becoming a trusted ally and informant for the underground rebel resistance. Being a double informant was not without its risks, however, and it became more and more difficult for Merkin to cover his tracks. One slip-up he knew could cost him more than just his carefully built fortune. Tem Merkin was always on the lookout for potential revenues. The more he knew, the fatter his purse. He saw a gold mine in Kir Kanos, a mysterious warrior who single-handedly killed several Imperial officers and stormtroopers. He took the stranger into hiding, unsure if the rebels or the Imperials would value Kanos more. He bought Kanos to the rebel leaders first, receiving a tidy sum from them, but then he went to the Imperial garrison, hoping for a reward due to Kanos' fugitive status, and told them of the rebels' stronghold as a bonus. But he hadn't counted on being caught in the middle of the coming conflict. He ran into Sadit, a New Republic lieutenant, and was dragged along to the base to warn the rebels. Despite being able to gain information with the rebels, Merkin feared being found out by the Imperials at the secret base. Lucky for him, Kir Kanos had turned back the Imperial forces, though several rebels were killed. But Sadit became suspicious of how the Empire learned so quickly of the base, knowing that Merkin and Kanos were the only outsiders among them. After a brief, extremely profitable meeting with the Imperial leader Karnor Jax, Merkin sneaked back into his hidden apartment, but the rebel leaders were waiting for him. He offered to share his reward with them in exchange for his life, but they refused. He turned and fled, having run out of options, but he didn't get very far. Tem Merkin learned too late that his betrayal, which ended the lives of others, would result in the loss of his own. The Mining Guild. The Mining Guild was a powerful trade union that regulated the supply of valuable raw ores to the New Republic and the Empire. The Guild secured several truces between the two sides, bypassing the Imperial Ruling Council. Members of the Guild were also secretly routing black market goods to further profit the Guild and themselves. One such Guild member, Captain Forna, was captured by Salman so that Grappa the Hutt could obtain his shipments and gain valuable inside information on the current trade routes. The Hutt would use his information to hijack even more trade supplies. Salman and his pirate gang. In the turmoil caused by the weakening of the Empire and its inability to patrol its own borders, numerous pirate squadrons have appeared, stealing valuable supplies from trade vessels and sometimes the ships themselves. One such group is the infamous pirate gang led by the fearsome Salman. A series of successful runs across the galaxy by Mon resulted in the acquisition of several small fighters, modified using black market components, as well as the recruitment of dangerous but obedient thugs of various species. Salman allied himself with the crime lord Grappa the Hutt, making profitable runs on major cargo ships. Grappa's knowledge of the transport of illegal goods made it possible for Mon to not only acquire his usual supplies, but valuable black market goods as well. When Grappa's control over the organization began to fall apart, the pirates fled to avoid being associated with the Hutt. Emperor Palpatine. It was the Royal Guard's sworn duty to devote their lives to their emperor, the man who had given them purpose and direction. Palpatine forged an empire by using his political influence and dark side power to bring about the new order in the galaxy, a militaristic galactic government ruled by his hand. Knowing that he had many hidden enemies within his empire, Emperor Palpatine secretly created his own personal royal guard, its secrets known only to him. He instilled in each guardsman a sense of duty and honor, so that they would never betray him, either each other or their secrets. The guard never knew the evil that was behind his iron rule. They obeyed his orders unquestioningly, always holding to the belief that the Emperor's words and motives were faultless. The Emperor knew the importance of symbolism and presence. That was why he always paid a visit to Imperial Guard trainees, often accompanied by his right-hand lackey and apprentice, Darth Vader, the Dark Lord of the Sith. A personal appearance by the Emperor, as well as the cold, armored Vader, would lend meaning to their work and training. He used Vader's masterful combat abilities as a demonstration that they still had much to learn before being ready to serve him. The final initiation of a Royal Guardsman was before Emperor Palpatine himself. A trainee with his longtime training partner, bound by friendship, would be brought before the Emperor. They would then be ordered to fight to the death. Palpatine knew that this would instill in a trainee a devotion to him over all others. Palpatine's body was destroyed in the Battle of Endor, but by Darth Vader when Vader turned from the dark side of the Force. Without the Emperor's guiding hand and influence over his subjects, the Empire weakened both without against the New Republic forces and within by internal political conflicts. But Palpatine returned years later in a new cloned body, ready to restore the Empire to its former glory. His return was short-lived, however. After years of instilling control over his minions, he was betrayed by Karnor Jax, one of his own royal guard, and died the final death, sending the Empire towards eventual defeat. Sish Sadit. The Trandoshan Sish Sadit was hatched to a lower-class clutch mother in the tropical regions of Trandosha, near one of the many Imperial bases on the planet. Dissatisfied with his servant-like existence at a young age, Sadit stowed away aboard an outgoing Imperial shuttle. While aboard the ship, he overheard the Imperial officers slandering his people, and succumbing to his warlike instincts, he attacked them. But he was quickly beaten, losing an arm to blaster fire for his actions. He was left to die on the wasteland of Mach 9, an Imperial-held world used for labor camps. Despite desperate to survive, Sadit reached a camp as it was being liberated by New Republic forces and was found by a young rebel soldier, a woman named Mira Sin. He was cared for by Sin and Republic medics, and was soon convinced that it was wrong for Trandoshan to ally themselves with the Empire. After his arm regrew, via his Trandoshan regenerative abilities, he joined the rebels as a soldier, and when the New Republic asked for experienced fighters to rally the Imperial resistance on Theta, he joined Mira Sin there as her lieutenant. Distrustful of outsiders, Sadit disliked working with Sin's informant, Tem Merkin. When Merkin brought an outsider into their midst, Kir Kanos, he became even more uneasy and suspicious. Less than a day after Kanos was brought to the secret rebel stronghold on Theta, Imperial forces ambushed them. Though the Imperials were driven back, the rebels were on dire straits, having to quickly move to a new secret location before the Empire sent greater numbers after them. Sadit sent a request for immediate backup. While the New Republic fighters kept the Imperial forces occupied, Sin and Sadit commandeered Kanos' ship to the planet Yin Kor. There they found Imperial warlord Karnor Jax, whom they had hoped to capture for questioning. But Kanos and Jax were locked in battle, and they were unable to stop them for fear of accidentally killing one of them. When Kanos gained the advantage and was about to kill Jax, Sadit ran at them in the hope of stopping the execution, but the threat Sadit appeared to pose to Kanos resulted in the Trandoshan's quick death. Sadit, loyal to the rebellion to the end, now lies buried on Yin Kor, the last reminder of the final battle. Colonel Shev. Zessus Shev never cared much for the Empire, but after being caught in the act of committing a petty crime, going to Imperial Academy seemed like a better choice than laboring in the spice mines of Kessel. As an Imperial officer, Shev found that he was surprisingly good at military procedure, but his poor attitude and lack of discipline landed him with insignificant assignment, command of the Imperial garrison on the planet Theta, a remote world of little importance. He discovered that going unnoticed did have its advantages. Finding that many who wished to escape the Empire's notice also traveled to Theta, Colonel Shev set up his own private operation, allowing himself and his men to accept bribes from various smugglers, thieves, and other shady individuals. Over time, Shev managed to make a decent living for himself, working only when he had to and covering his tracks so his superiors would not investigate. But all that changed when Kir Kanos arrived on Theta. After Kanos single-handedly killed several of Shev's men in a local tap cafe, Shev waged a planet-wide manhunt for him, hoping to deal with the incident before attracting the notice of the rest of the Empire. But Karnor Jax himself informed Shev that he would investigate the matter personally. Shev knew that he had to find Kanos before Jax did, or his corrupt operation would be exposed and his career would be ruined. The informant Tem Merkin told Colonel Shev where to find Kanos at a hidden rebel stronghold. In the hope that he would gain favor with Jax, as well as cover up for his illegal activities, Shev orders an immediate attack on the rebel base. But Kanos and the rebels beat back the Imperials only with minor casualties. His plans ruined, Shev knew that his last chance to capture Kanos lay in finding the fugitive ship and ambushing him there. But he never got the chance. Karnor Jax arrived as scheduled, and upon finding that Shev had defied his direct orders, he had him summarily executed. Mirith Sin. The model of determination in the face of tragedy, Mirith Sin never dreamed she would one day become a New Republic commander. She grew up on Nez Perrin, a world of farming collectives. Always attracted to greatness, she married a pro-rebellion farmer who represented the collectives. When Imperials demanded supplies and he refused, they killed him. Sin swore at that moment that she would fight the Empire until she died. She joined the rebellion and, having natural leadership abilities herself, soon became a commander. As the leader of the rebel cell on Theta, she kept her troops' activities hidden from the Empire, engaging mostly in secret hit-and-run ambush tactics, all in a fashion that would not tie these actions to a rebel organization. They began construction of a rebel stronghold in the mountains away from Theta's spaceports, where they would monitor Imperial activities without being discovered. Upon learning of Kir Kanos' presence on Theta, Sin offered him protection with her men, though some of her men, including Sish Sadit, her second-in-command, and Massimo, her lieutenant, had suspicions about Kanos. She reasoned that if he proved troublesome, they could always deal with him later. She was not yet aware of her own attraction to Kanos. Sin's first attempt at learning about Kanos proved unfruitful, though she found herself revealing her own troubled past to the stranger. Her troops then informed her that Kanos was wanted by Karnor Jax himself, though they believed this would only lead to trouble. She fearlessly decided that Kanos should remain with them. Before she could pry further, her rebel stronghold was attacked by Imperial forces. Caught completely off guard, Sin made some dangerous tactical decisions for her troops, but Kanos, in his Royal Guard armor, turned the tide of battle single-handedly and forced back the Imperials. She once again offered an alliance with Kanos, but he again refused. Still, she worked out a plan with him to allow him to escape while she would get close to and hopefully stop Jax. Her more immediate concern, how the Emperor discovered her base, was satisfied when she and her men tailed their informant Tem Merkin, learned he was an Imperial informant, and killed him to prevent his escape. Thus die all traitors, she proclaimed. She was willing to put her life on the line to protect her men, but would not tolerate others putting them in danger. Next, Sin put her plan into motion. She disguised herself as Kanos, luring Jax's troops to his ship, but she was captured and tortured. She refused to reveal Kanos' whereabouts until Jax ordered the bombardment of her secondary base. Forced to reveal the truth, she was then set free. While New Republic forces attacked the Imperials at Theta, Sin and Sidit took Kanos' ship to Yin Khor, where Jax has gone searching for Kanos. Knowing that capturing Jax would be an important asset to the New Republic's cause, they hoped to stop him before he found Kanos. But the two enemies were already in the heat of battle. Though they tried to intervene, the result was the deaths of Jax and Sidit, both at Kanos' hands. She let Kanos go and buried her friend, already planning her next role as the fighter of the New Republic. When her allies arrived, she swore before them that she would hunt down Kanos and destroy him. Soon after, Mira Sin went to the criminal boss Grappa the Hutt and offered her services to him. She asked him to track down Kir Kanos so she could supposedly kill him. That was actually a cover. Her real mission was to spy on Grappa's organization to find evidence that his employees were hijacking New Republic supply ships. But Sin's plan was discovered by the Hutt, who gave her to the alien Xanabar. She was taken to the Xanabar homeworld as a sacrifice, but was rescued by Kir Kanos and Tav Kanade, a recent rebel recruit. Sin then led an alliance raid on the Black Sun cloning facility on the planet Smark, which she learned of while in Grappa's service. But when she learned of Kanos' capture by the Xanabar, she and other rebels raided Grappa's palace on Genon and rescued him in turn. Together, Sin and Kanos stormed the Imperial Council headquarters, capturing the surviving council members. Mary Sin saw in Kir Kanos many of the same qualities that had attracted her to her late husband and tried to turn him from his quest of vengeance. Though she could not convince him, the beginning of a romance was developed between them. Only time will tell whether their destinies lie along the same path. General Wessel. Red Wessel always dreamt of service in the Imperial Navy, leading its ships to glory, but tests at the Imperial Academy labeled him as being a better service to the Empire as an Army officer. Wessel went to the attention of his superiors during the Imperial cleansing of Yin Khor. Originally a soldier for Imperial ground-based operations, he was promoted at a steady rate through the ranks of general, mainly due to his by-the-book approach to strategy and command. As an Army officer, Wessel saw very little in the way of a promising future for his career. Opportunities struck in the form of Karnor Jax. Jax, Wessel, the future of Imperial Ruling Council, and the Emperor's physician conspired to destroy Palpatine and rule the Empire. With Wessel's help, Jax was able to take control of the whole council and set himself up as Lord Jax. Jax, being a former soldier himself, felt more comfortable in the presence of army commanders than admirals and captains. He made Wessel his right-hand man, directing his military operations, while he and his assistant Lieutenant Blim handled the more personal affairs. But Wessel lacked the vision Jax demanded of his high-ranking officers, and he endured constant criticism from Lord Jax for his inability to understand Jax's designs. General Wessel made his final mistake by bringing Kir Kanos' bomb-rigged ship aboard Jax's Star Destroyer, the Emperor's Revenge, resulting in an explosion and killed everyone aboard. Thank you all for tuning in. We invite you to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and click the bell to get notified about our next video. Once again, I'd like to invite you to support this channel today through memberships and apparel. Until the Infernal Brotherhood convenes again, my fellow scruffy-looking nerf herders, may the Force be with you.